Okay, Hadbro Horsham. We're going to take a look at the cage system, how the cage system works up and down the guitar. I went over it at the last session. I asked you to do this between now and next Wednesday, and we will go over it there. It's something that it gets confusing because of the shapes, etc. involved, but there's a very strict and eventually a pretty easily comprehended logic to all of this, and that's what we're gonna, with your work and putting in a little effort, and going to fight through. So the first thing I'm going to say is these things, when you talk about the cage system, when you talk about the shapes of the pentatonic scales and shapes of the chords, this is a way of relating them together. So, it's very important, once again, as I've been saying for years and years now, to learn these notes on string 6 and learn the notes on string 5 at this point, because there are two shapes that we're going to use here that are based on the root note of the chord being on string 6, and there are two shapes based on the root note being on string 5, and there's one shape based on the root note being on string 4. There are two shapes for that, but I'll get into that on Wednesday. It's not confusing, but let's suffice to say that for the moment. So I look on it as moving north here. There's a shape. I'm going to start on any note here. I'm going to start on G, and the G, because this gives you the chord shape. You know that shape, however you make it. You know this shape as a G chord, and this shape right here, remember, includes all of these notes, and some of those notes are being held down up here at the nut on your guitar. So I know the nut on the guitar is the player, but this. So you have this shape, and it's very important to visualize that shape for the 6 strings. That's done right here in the G pentatonic shape. If I play that shape, you'll see zeros. 0 means, you see where this is marked, at fret, the open fret. So I'm just going to play. And I'll play the first 6 identifying notes, which is the 4-top song that everybody knows. It's just a little check on yourself. Am I playing the right thing? So I play it up north like this. That's what the shape is. If I base another note on this root, or excuse me, another G chord on this G root that we're using, I put an E formation. Here's an E chord. I put an E chord here, and if I put that E chord behind a bar on all the strings, so that all the strings maintain the same relationship one to the other as they have up here. As an example, again, you can see the string 5, I'm holding down at fret 2, and at string 6, it's fret 0. So there's a 2 fret difference here. If I move this down here without barring fret 3, and I look at what I'm playing on string 5, it's now at fret 5, and it now has a difference of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different, or 5 frets. So it's not going to sound like a major chord unless I bar it. That's just by means of review, and that is pure logic. Logic will lead you to that conclusion. So they're the 2 chord shapes that I have here, a G and a G. They're both G major chords. Both contain the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th. Every chord that I'm playing here is either a G, a B, or a D, and you should check that out on the other sheet that we have. That gives all the degrees of the scale for all the keys. So I have, and here I have G, a B, or a D. And every shape that I'm going to play here, every chord shape that I'm going to play, it's going to be a G, a B, or a D that you're playing. When you note that when you play the major pentatonic scale that these chord shapes are associated with, the pentatonic scale cuts out the second and the sixth right here. Excuse me, the sixth, it's cutting out the seventh. So there are going to be, you have two notes in this scale that are not chord notes. That's the second and the sixth. So this shape looks like this, whereas the chord that's associated with looks like this because it's using a G, B, and a D. The scale uses a G and A B, a D, and an E. That A and the E are not named G, B, or D, so they're not in the chord. So we have this chord associated with this pentatonic scale. And we have this shape, this E shape, associated with this pentatonic scale. They're the two chord shapes and scales, pentatonic scales, that are associated with this root note. Any root note. I just make the same shapes and everything falls into place. I come down here to a B, for instance, and I play and I have a B major pentatonic scale. If I make that chord, which is starting at B and just having this E shape falling behind it, that's a B major chord. If I put my pinky up here and make this shape, it is also, I just gave you a sixth, it is also a B major chord, and generally it's too tough to do this at speed, so you don't actually do this. You usually deaden string 1, which is not a chord note. But if I make this G shape, you can clearly see that's a G shape, and if I bar these three internal notes, 2, 3, or strings 2, 3, and 4, I end up with a G shape and a G chord made just like this, but moved down here now to where it is a B chord. So I come to string 5, take a root note there. I have a C chord based on this root note. You want to know that this C chord, here's the root note for that C chord, and going north again, that's the chord. And that pentatonic scale will look like the C shape, which is on here on the handout that I have. And you can see there's a C chord, as you have known and love up here in these first 3 fret positions with the first chords that you learn. And if I take this C and now go south, I can make an A-shaped chord up here and move this A shape from A, B flat, B, C, move it down here, and I have a C major chord. It's the way it's usually made. You deaden string 1 because that is not a chord note. But if I come down here and if I do make that C shape, I have now I've moved an A chord down here to a C, and it's now a C note. So I have a C chord that goes north, that you know, and I have another C chord that goes south, and you do know that shape. It's an A shape, but moved down to this position, this form made right after this note, it now becomes a C major chord. That's 4 of the shapes that you have here. The other shape is a D chord shape. that you've known, the very first chord you've ever known, that's based on string 4 open, and this shape that follows it. Now, if you move this, it's D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. But I can only play the first 3 notes there. I can actually play the first 4 because it's a D note. But if I made this D shape and then barred up here, I now have a D chord, move down, and because it's just a shape, at this point on the fretboard, this same shape that you make a D is now a G chord. So let's just take 2 examples of the cage. We'll just move it right on down. I'm going to use moving this C chord in the key of C. What are the positions? What are the cage positions? Which means, where do I find C chords all along here? I find them in a particular order. That order is C, A, G, E, D. That spells caged. So I have a C right here. And then moving down this neck, if I put my finger right up here in the C note, you know that right behind it, that's the A shape right here. That A shape moved down here. If I move that down there, I now have a C chord. Now, where would the next one be? It would be a G shape. Well, the G shape has these three notes here, and you check along with what I handed out. And if I make a G chord behind that, I now have another C chord. See, that's a C. And you can hear that goes along with that right here. But right here, C, A, G, we know the next one is based right here in this very same root note. Put an E shape behind it, and you have another C chord. So you have a C here, or like this, that's a G shape, and the E shape right here. I'm at fret 8 right now. And then the final one would be a D shape down here off this root C note, which is at string 4, fret 10. Right there, I now have another C. And usually, once again, it's too tough to make these formations in most songs. And most people just bar that the string 1 and get a G like that. And this has probably more usage for you as just a spot for when you're when you're improvising and jamming. So that's using the cage system all the way up the neck to show you where all the C chords are that you can make. And the good news is those C chords all have very familiar look to you. They're one of 5 chords. They're one of a C shape, an A shape, a G shape, an E shape, or a D shape. Moved right on down the fretboard. What is just important for you to know is what these notes are on string 6 and what the notes are on string 5. They're the root notes that you're going to be using. How do you, if you're on string 4 and you haven't memorized it, but you have memorized all the notes on string 6 and 5, you just know with that little L shape that I showed, you can just go 2 back and 2 up. And if, for instance, I'm on string 4, fret 5, then I go 2 back and 2 up, and I see that I'm actually playing a G note. This is a G note, and the G note would have this D shape behind it. If you use this G note at string 4, fret 5, and make a D chord behind it, I'm actually playing a G chord with a D shape. All right? Well, I encourage you to try to do that with starting with a G, for instance, or starting with an A, and see if you can move down the fretboard using these shapes and start to make sense. That's how you're going to make sense out of it, by actually doing it. It's very easy. It's a lot easier, let's say, to look at what I did with the explanation and say, oh yeah, I get that. But that's not the deal. The deal is that you actually have to be able to do it, not understand it conceptually, but to actually do it and navigate around. And there's only one way to do that, and that's you doing it. All right, so we'll do it. We'll spend a bit of time, probably on the next several classes, just making that sink in and making it useful for you, and show how you can use it in various examples. So work on that, and I will see you on Wednesday.